So when I was a kid, about second grade, I started having trouble in school. And I don't know if there was any trouble before that I just wasn't aware of. What I remember when I look back on my life, and I'm like 37 right now, so this was almost 30 years ago, I remember that the second grade was the really rough year. And my teacher kept having parent-teacher meetings with my parents. And she kept telling them that I was really lethargic in class, really zoned out, really just not there. And she wondered if maybe I had hearing damage, so my family went and took me and got my hearing tested. My hearing was fine. She wondered if maybe I had, just any number of problems. I think at one point I think they stopped believing her. Like, they stopped listening to her altogether when she suggested that maybe I was having very small, very minor seizures in class, because she just couldn't figure out why I was so completely zoned out in the middle of class. Like, I was just not there. She didn't know why, and she was trying to express this to my parents. My parents weren't saying anything like that at home, so they were like, it's a teacher problem, it's not a child problem. But before that, I got tested for, like, a bunch of things, because every single parent-teacher meeting, number one, she's doing horribly in school. Number two, she just doesn't seem like she's really all there. So naturally, at one point, my teacher brought up the subject of intelligence to my parents and said, look, this was after the hearing tests and a bunch of the other tests. She was like, do you think it's possible your daughter is mentally retarded? And that sounds really bad, and YouTube will probably censor me from saying that. Like, mentally retarded is not a nice term. That was the terminology that was used back in the day. This is 30 years ago, right? So back in those days, that was the actual term that they used when they talked about me. They were like, oh, she's probably mentally retarded because she's not doing well in school. She can't keep up. She seems pretty out of it. She's moving really slowly. Like, she's just not okay. Is it mental retardation? Now, I looked at it and said, you know what? Teacher's probably right. I'm probably just stupid. My mother was horribly offended, just deeply offended. And so at some point my parents, because they knew that I was never going to believe that I wasn't mentally retarded, so they got that tested too. I thought, maybe she's right. And one of the big issues was reading. I couldn't read. All the other kids, they could pretty well read. I couldn't read. And that was another one of those, she can't read. All the other kids are at a cognitive level where they can read, and she can't. And so, I was not doing well in school. My mom ended up taking me home, and every day after school, she would teach me how to read. Make me read books, have her read out loud to her. It was honestly pretty god-awful, because no kid wants to go through a school day, especially when they don't like school, and then go home for more school. But that's what happened. My mother was the one who ultimately taught me how to read, because I just wasn't learning in school. And in case you're wondering, like, what was going on, why was I so zoned out, why was I so lethargic and clumsy and uncoordinated and just kind of, retarded? Why was I like that? Why did everybody think that I was mentally retarded? I had asthma, exercise-induced asthma as a kid. I've talked about it a lot. Recently in a conversation with my mom, she was kind of shocked to hear about some of the things I'd gone through, because she kind of wasn't very aware of the things I'd gone through. My parents didn't really know what I was dealing with when I was a kid, which I've questioned them, a lot. Like, how could you not know? But that's a different matter. She looked at it and said, I thought that your asthma was going to be like your dad's allergies, because my dad had allergies, and one of the symptoms of his allergies was fatigue. Allergies can cause fatigue, and he was a very tired person sometimes, because if he'd been exposed to any kind of an allergen, he'd get really tired. And he just kind of had to live with that. If he was having an allergic reaction to something, he'd be very, very tired, and he had to just kind of work through it. And so what I was told when I was a kid a lot was, you just have to keep working, you just have to push through it, you just have to push harder. Oh, there's a dragonfly in my car. Hello, fella. Look, this place is a hot box. You're gonna die. Get out. Why am I sitting in here? There's a heat advisory outside. This is dumb. I can't make this video otherwise, though, so here we go. So I got a lot of talks about how to push through it. Just push through it. But the difference between an allergic reaction where you feel fatigue and an asthmatic reaction where you feel lethargy. The lethargy is because there is a physical obstruction inside your lungs. And because of that physical obstruction, your lungs aren't breathing. And so you are not functionally breathing enough oxygen to be able to operate at a normal level. So that could be tiredness because your muscles are oxygen deprived, or lethargy because your brain is oxygen deprived, or some combination of those two things. But basically, you know, deprive a person of oxygen to an extent that they appear to be mentally retarded, and you get me. I was a mess, and you know, it is what it is. But the other kids bullied me a lot because they knew that there was something wrong with me. Everybody knew there was something wrong with me except for my parents, it seems. And you know, I got picked on all throughout school, and they would usually call me, you know, the retard, because I was clearly just not operating at the same level as everybody else, which sounds really, really depressing. You know, I got picked on all the time. Nobody liked me. Even the people who pretended to be my friends were just pretending to be my friends, most often because that way they could pick on me and make themselves feel better about themselves. That was my upbringing. Sounds super, super depressing, I know. And, you know, we'll just leave that part of history where it is. So, middle school hits. And middle school, for me, where I was going to school, we left the elementary school building and we transferred over to a different building in town. So they were starting to prep us for high school. So when we got to this new building, we had individual classes and individual rooms. And so we went from elementary school where, you know, you all kind of file into one classroom. They give you an assigned desk, and that's your desk, and you just stay at that desk all day long, and your teacher comes in, and you have one teacher, and she teaches you all your subjects. In middle school, they were kind of gearing us up for high school, where you have different classes. I guess high school is prep for college too. It's all just kind of this whole rolling ball of let's teach you the next step you're going to be going into. So I had multiple classes in multiple rooms with multiple teachers, and I had to go in for an hour, and then I'd have that teacher teaching me one subject, and then I'd pick up all my books and supplies and things, and I'd go to a different classroom, and I'd have that teacher teaching me a subject for an hour. That was, you know, how it works. And I mean, most people, they're kind of familiar with that process. So, first day of middle school, I go in. My phone shut down. It was too hot in the car. It wasn't too hot for me, apparently, because I was pretty comfortable, but the phone shut down, stopped working, and so I had to find a new location. Hopefully, this one's okay. The problem I'm having in the house is that we've got the air conditioning running like crazy because it's super hot, and that's all you can hear if I try to film inside the house, is you can just hear the air conditioning making this like high-pitched whining noise. So I filmed this video before, and the footage was entirely useless because of the noise. So now I'm out here. Please forgive the state of my carport area. I'm doing some house cleaning. I'm tearing apart a room in the house, like literally tearing it apart. So some of this stuff is just sort of... There's a chair. Yeah. Anyway, yes, I am sitting on the wheel of a lawnmower, and I'm gonna just have to go from here. Hopefully the phone doesn't overheat again. It feels pretty cozy to me, but I'm a reptile. I like hot spaces, so yeah. So I was making my way to all my classes, and there was one class in particular that I was really excited about going to, and that was English. English in room 201. Now, how did I go from being a little girl who couldn't read, who was mentally retarded, to being a little girl who, you know, several years later was excited about an English class? Well, in the 6th grade, my 6th grade teacher, she felt bad for me. So at the end of the 6th grade, my teacher called a parent-teacher meeting with me and my parents, and she looked at me and said, you know, I know you've had a really, really rough year. It's been really hard for you, and I want to do anything that I can to make it better. So what can I do? And I'm sitting there staring at her like, I don't know. She's like, well, what do you want? Like, I mean, if you want a trip to Disneyland, you can have a trip to Disneyland. Like, we'll try to make that happen for you. And I don't know. I don't know why she felt the need to do that. I know I was having a really, really bad time. Like, I was having a really bad time. I look back at that part of my life and I think to myself, you know, it feels like it happened to somebody else, because I don't know how I stayed alive through all that. Like, I don't know how I survived my childhood. I guess I just did, one day at a time, one breath at a time, but it was really bad. So, you know, do you want something? Do you want anything? Do you want a trip to Disneyland? And I said, you know, what I really, really want more than anything is to get into the advanced English program, because my school had an advanced program, a program for gifted and talented children. And I wanted to get into that because I was painfully bored in school. Painfully bored. And it was really hard to pay attention because I was really bored. I had been diagnosed with ADHD at that point, but nobody wanted to talk about that. My mom told me not to tell anybody because they might treat me differently. So, you know, obviously we weren't talking about that, which means that we weren't working together to find solutions to it. But back in those days, teachers weren't particularly good at working with students and families to find ways to deal with ADHD anyway, so I was probably screwed either way, honestly. So, you know, whatever. But it wasn't just the ADHD, it was the asthma, which I still wasn't getting the proper treatment for and would not get the proper treatment for at any point in my time in the public school system. So don't go hoping for that to have a happy ending anytime soon. Those of you who know me, who are familiar with my channel, who know my story, I nearly died when I was 17 from an asthma attack because my gym teacher didn't think I had asthma, even though I told him I had asthma. He just didn't think I had asthma. Shocked that I was like collapsed on the floor lying there, and yelled at me for a while and then just left me there. Literally left me there. So yeah, I nearly died. Just stuff did not get better for a while. But 6th grade, teacher felt really bad for me. She didn't really know much about the asthma at all, but she knew I was having a really rough time. And she knew I was picked on by all the other kids. And she knew that I was not doing okay. So, profoundly depressed. Profoundly depressed. Let's add that in there. I was profoundly depressed. I didn't see any way out of my situation. That was the only life I had ever known, and it was a horrible life. She got me into the advanced English program because, honestly, that was a pretty doable thing for her. Because even though my grades were abysmal, my grades were quite horrible. Like, I had grades that matched that whole, well, maybe she's just mentally retarded. My test scores were not the test scores of a mentally retarded child. My test scores were, in fact, really not the test scores of a mentally retarded child. At all. Which is an uncomfortable thing to talk about. In this society, you're not supposed to talk about that. Anyway, she got me into advanced English. So, you know, middle school rolls around and I'm looking forward to this advanced English class because I'm like, I don't know what this thing's gonna have in it, but it sounds like a lot of fun. I want to see what's coming here. Like, this is something to look forward to. So, the hour comes. I'm standing in the hallway, I'm looking at my little map in my hand. Advanced English, room 201. I look down at the map, I look up at the classroom door, room 201, room 201. This is the room. I walk in, and I see all the smart kids from my elementary school sitting in that room. And a bunch of other kids I don't recognize, probably from the other elementary schools in the area. They all kind of got filtered into this one room. It's all the smart kids though, so I'm like, this is probably the right spot. They see me walking in the door and immediately they're like, you're in the wrong classroom. Anybody who recognized me, you're in the wrong classroom. And I look at them and I look down at my map, room 201, right? And I turn around, walk out of the classroom, I look up, room 201, room 201. Okay, so I look around, you know, are there any other room 201s around here? Like, what's going on? Nope, no other 201s, so this must be the classroom. And so I go back into the classroom, and again, they look at me, they're like, you're in the wrong classroom. Oh well, you know, what are you gonna do? If this is room 201, and the printout that I was given with my list of classes is also saying room 201. I'm in the place I was told to go, and if there was a mistake somewhere in like the office at the school where they must have written down the wrong number, well, you know, they can sort that out themselves. That's kind of beyond my pay grade, you know. The grown-ups will figure it out when I sit down and then they tell me where to go. It's a little frustrating because I don't want to miss like even a minute of advanced English, but here I am, and you know, eventually they'll send me to the right place, right? So all the kids were sitting on one end of the classroom. I remember this too. They were all on one end of the classroom, and I walked in and there wasn't a lot of seating over there, so I just kind of walked past everybody and sat down on the other end of the classroom. Because the seats were divided into like two sections, and then there was the front of the classroom right here. So I sat at the very front of the classroom all by myself on the side facing like opposite everyone else. And the teacher comes in and everybody's sitting there and I'm sitting there, and I think somebody even pointed to me and said she's in the wrong classroom, and the teacher said, well, let's see. So he takes out his attendance sheet, he sets it down on the little podium at the front of the class, and he starts reading off the names. And he reads name after name after name, you know, raise your hand, say present. Everybody was raising their hand, present, you know. Still hasn't called my name, still hasn't called my name, still hasn't called my name. Gets to the very, very end of the list, because it's alphabetical, right? Calls my name. And everybody stared at me. Because I was that retarded girl. Like, I was the retarded kid from their school. I was the dumbest kid in their class. The hell was I doing in there, right? I started writing novels when I was about 13. And I never published any of them because I was a 13-year-old kid. And 13-year-olds don't have the life experience to write really good novels. They just don't. And so I'd write them kind of as a practice. And the first one was only about 45, maybe 60 pages. It wasn't big. But the second one was pretty big. Like, I think it was 180 pages. And then the third one was like 320 pages. And then I started, you know, working on perfecting them, working on tuning them, working on making them better. And that's just not a normal thing that 13-year-olds do. Or so I am told. I could move very well, and my body was falling apart around me. All I could do was sit quietly and live inside my head. And so I wrote novels. One after the other after the other. Didn't really care much about publishing the things because all I cared about was just creating and world building and watching the characters interact in their own world, because I mean, I didn't have friends. Everybody picked on me. Everybody thought I was a retard. Everybody told me I was useless. A waste of life, garbage. You know, I grew up and I became an exotic dancer, and everybody's like, well, why would you do that, you know? Now society's gonna think you're garbage. Really? Funny thing, that. Society always thought I was garbage. Society always thought I was expendable. Society always thought I was useless, a waste of life, a retard. Huh? Nobody ever thought I had any worth. So becoming an exotic dancer, you know, yeah, there's social drawbacks, but really, are they going to be that noticeable to someone like me? No, not really, not particularly. I do think it's very interesting how people treat you as an exotic dancer. Like, I think it's fascinating how people treat other people that are beneath them. Because I've seen it so much, and I've experienced it so much, and it's so fascinating. And intelligence itself is a fascinating discussion, because I think there are way too many people in this world who genuinely, and I mean, this blows my mind, I think too many people in this world genuinely attribute intelligence to overall human worth. Are you smart? Well, then you're worth something. Are you stupid? Well, then you're not worth something. And I can't fully wrap my mind around that, honestly. It seems so terribly short-sighted to me. A human being is the sum of their actions. It doesn't matter what you think. Nobody can see what you think. It doesn't matter what your internal workings are. Are you smart? Are you dumb? Those affect your ability to do things, but they don't necessarily affect your moral character. There are plenty of really, really intelligent, horrible people in this world who do horrible things and use their intelligence to do horrible things more successfully. A person who is kind, a person who is honorable, that means more than all the high IQ scores in the world. A person's good character, I think, is a greater testament to their worth as a human being. I just thought it was so funny, like, you don't belong here. You know, people think they know all sorts of things. They don't. And it can be funny what people think they know versus what people do know. I see that a lot. In any of my videos about being an exotic dancer, people are like, oh, just because you're an exotic dancer, don't go thinking you're hot shit. You're just another dumb, you know, pair of tits with legs, really. And it's like, you have no idea. You have no idea. And people want to do that. They want to do that a lot. They want to say that everybody is dumber than me. I see that kind of thinking a lot. I see the people who are in lower places in the world than I am must be less valuable than me. That's an interesting thought. That's an interesting mindset. Like, I try to understand where they're coming from when they say things that suggest this is what they're thinking. You know, the bag boy at the grocery store. He's a kid. That's why he's a bag boy at a grocery store. He's starting out in life. But you're sitting there saying, well, I'm better than he is. Why? Why? Because you didn't have to start out as a bag boy at a grocery store? Because you had, what, mom and dad to pay for your stuff? Who are these people? Seriously, who are these people who look at other people and say, I'm better than them? I don't understand it. Other people who are in low places in the world, lower social castes. I'm better than them. Why? Why? What is it about you that's so goddamn special? I don't understand it. It's mysterious to me. It's just absolutely mysterious. But anyway, I keep thinking about this story whenever I think about intelligence and gender and men versus women and how intellect plays out with that, because that's an interesting thing to talk about. You know, I think about all the people who told me that I was dumb. Too dumb. Just way too dumb. Must be mentally retarded. You know, I think about all the times people called me the retard and how it meant nothing because they didn't know. I didn't believe the test results at first. Like, I just looked at it like, this is crazy. This isn't real. Because everybody calls me retarded. Everybody tells me I'm stupid. How can this be my IQ? People don't know shit. So, you know, if you are downtrodden, if you are lowly, if you are undervalued by the world around you, I hope you don't let that drag you down. Because honestly, people around you who are telling you that you're worthless, the people around you who are telling you that you're garbage, I can almost guarantee that those people don't actually know a goddamn thing. Work hard, be a good person, build your life up. Treat your life like it is a work of art. Every great painting has shadows. It's texture. Sometimes the flaws are what make it all beautiful. And build a beautiful life for yourself. And fuck what those people say, because they don't know a fucking thing. Have a wonderful day, guys. I'll talk to y'all later.